Russia is the largest country on Earth, 17.1 million square kilometers. You could fit the United States inside it twice and still have room. It holds 30% of the world's natural resources: oil, gas, gold, timber, diamonds. More natural wealth per square kilometer than any country alive. Russia's GDP ranks 11th in the world. Smaller than South Korea, smaller than Brazil, smaller than Italy, a country with no oil, no gas, no Siberia, and 1/10 the land. GDP per capita, $14,000. Malaysia level, not Germany, not Japan. The country with the most land and resources on Earth lives like Malaysia. This is the question nobody asks. Not why is Russia aggressive? Everyone asks that. The real question is, why, with all of that, is Russia poor? The answer goes back 500 years, and it has nothing to do with sanctions. Here is what I found when I started researching this story. I assumed Russia's problem was Putin. I went looking for the policy failures, the corruption, the war. I was wrong. Putin is not the problem. Putin is what the problem looks like after 500 years. The disease predates him by 20 rulers. Russia has fought a major war in every single decade since 1900. 12 conflicts in 12 decades, not once, not twice. Every single decade. That is not bad luck. That is a business model. Other countries go to war. Russia stays at war. By May 2026, Russia had crossed 1 million total casualties in Ukraine alone. Every time it ends, the economy falters, and the next leader discovers that the only thing that makes Russia feel like Russia is fighting something. Russia didn't choose war. It chose never to build anything that could survive without it. To understand Russia, you have to understand Ivan, not Putin, not Stalin, even the terrible. In 1547, he created the template every Russian ruler has followed since. Ivan's template: destroy the independent nobility, replace them with men whose land, titles, and lives belong to the ruler, centralize all power, expand outward when internal tension rises. Peter the Great followed Ivan's template. Catherine followed Peter's. Stalin followed all of them. Putin follows Stalin's. Russia abolished serfdom in 1861, 4 years after the American Civil War. Until then, 80% of Russians were legally owned, bought, sold, inherited. When you abolish serfdom that late, you have no middle class, no merchant tradition, no independent property rights culture, no entrepreneurial habit. 80% of Russians were serfs until 1861. Every Western economy was built on a middle class with property rights. Russia skipped that step. You cannot skip that step. Then came 1917. The Tsar fell, the people rose. Within 3 years, Russia had replaced one autocrat with something worse. The Bolsheviks did not break Ivan's template, they perfected it. And in 1929, Stalin made the decision that explains why Russia cannot fix its economy today, a decision that destroyed the last thing Russia had that could have saved it. He collectivized agriculture, destroyed the kulaks, Russia's independent farmers, the only class with any tradition of running something for themselves, gone in 4 years. What he built to replace them, the military-industrial complex, is why Russia is fighting in Ukraine today. Not ideology, economics. I will show you why it cannot stop. If you are thinking, that was a long time ago, institutions are not policies. You cannot pass a law that creates entrepreneurial culture. You cannot decree that people trust contracts. These things take generations to build. Russia has spent 5 centuries tearing them down, every single time. They began to appear when oil was discovered in Western Siberia in the 1960s. Russia found a way to fund its military complex without reforming. Oil paid for everything. 60% of export revenue. The state did not need citizens to be productive. It needed oil to be expensive. This is the resource curse. And Russia is its purest example. When you fund the state through oil, you never have to build institutions. You never have to make the population productive. You never have to make the law reliable. You just need the oil to flow and an army to make sure nobody takes it. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. The West assumed Russia would become a democracy. What happened? Russia ran Ivan's template again. Oligarchs replaced commissars. FSB replaced KGB. The Kremlin kept the Kremlin. The man who understood this faster than anyone, that in Russia power flows through personal loyalty to whoever controls the state, rose through the FSB, became prime minister, then president. He understood Ivan's template better than anyone alive, and he decided to use it rather than break it. 1937, Stalin's Great Purge. 70,007 people executed in 18 months. Not enemies. His own generals, his own economists, his own engineers. Think about what that means economically. You cannot build a productive economy when the most talented people know that success makes them a target. In Russia for 5 centuries, standing out has been dangerous. That lesson does not leave a culture in 1 generation or 3. At its peak, the Gulag held 1.8 million prisoners. Many were engineers, scientists, economists, people whose skills the state needed, but whose independence it feared. Russia built its great infrastructure projects with slave labor and called it industrialization, a country where the state killed more of its own citizens than any foreign enemy. Every century, and people kept serving it. That is not patriotism. That is a civilization that learned to love the thing that hurt it. The Orthodox Church gave Russia its moral framework for this. Holy Russia, the sacred nation that suffers for a divine purpose. When the war takes your son, it is not waste, it is destiny. This is what happens when a state captures a religion and turns it into a compliance tool. Russia has done this for 500 years. Still doing it. Here is what Russia has never had. A rule of law that applies to powerful people. In 5 centuries, no powerful man went to prison for breaking a law he wrote. Law in Russia is not a constraint on the state. It is a weapon of the state, used to punish enemies and protect allies. It has always been this way. Russia ranks 107th on the Global Corruption Index. Not because Russians are corrupt people, because the system selects for corruption, where what you own can be taken by whoever has power. The rational strategy is to extract as much as possible, as fast as possible, and move it somewhere safe. This is why Russian oligarchs moved money to London, Cyprus, Dubai. Not greed. Rational response to a system they understood better than anyone. When Putin jailed Khodorkovsky in 2003, Russia's richest man, every other oligarch got the message. Your money is not yours. It belongs to whoever the Kremlin decides. The result: no serious Russian entrepreneur builds a company that could threaten the state. No serious investor puts long-term capital into Russia. No serious scientist risks a breakthrough that might attract wrong attention. Russia has produced some of the greatest mathematicians and physicists in history. 0 of the world's top 100 tech companies are Russian. Almost none did their best work in Russia. After the 2022 invasion, 500,000 Russians left in the first year. Programmers, engineers, doctors, the largest single-year brain drain from a major economy in modern history. Russia calls them traitors. Economists call them the future that left. So Russia is left with the economy it has always had. 3 things: oil, gas, and military hardware, and the state apparatus to protect them. That is the entire Russian economy. 3 things. And 1, military hardware, only makes money when there is a war to sell to, or a war to justify making more of it. In 2025, Russia spent 7.5% of GDP on defense, the highest since the Cold War. That is not a country investing in its future. That is a country consuming itself, converting its remaining wealth into shells, and calling it strategy. When the oil money runs out, there is nothing behind it. Russia's national wealth fund has fallen from 6% of GDP to below 2%, nearly gone. No diversified economy, no innovation sector, No rule of law that makes contracts reliable, just the gun and the pipe. World fracture has now covered 11 countries in decline. Britain lost its confidence, Italy lost its ambition, Japan lost its children, Russia lost something harder to recover, 500 years of the same pattern. It lost the institutional habit of building anything at all. Putin has been in power for 23 years. Most Russians under 30 have never known another leader. Most people outside Russia confuse the symptom for the disease. If Putin died tomorrow, Russia would not become a democracy. It would find another Putin. The system does not produce Putins by accident. It produces them by design. 3 times Russia could have broken the pattern. 1917, 1991, 2000. Each time it chose the familiar over the possible, not because Russians lack intelligence, because institutions shape behavior. Russia's institutions have been selecting for autocrats since even. That does not change in one election. What Putin did differently was read the oil boom. The 2000s gave him a decade of money. He used it to buy the oligarchs or jail them, rebuild the military, fund pensions. He made Russians feel prosperous for the first time since the Soviet era. The boom ran from 2000 to 2014, and then the oil price fell. When oil fell in 2014, Putin did what every Russian ruler does when internal legitimacy weakens. He reached outward, Crimea, then Donbass, then Ukraine in 2022. This is Ivan's template. When the economy cannot deliver legitimacy, expand, create an external enemy, give the population something to be proud of that costs nothing except young men's lives. Now Russia is trapped. It cannot win in Ukraine without resources it does not have. It cannot stop without losing the one thing that gives the government legitimacy. The idea that Russia is a great power worth suffering for. 8 trillion rubles in overdue corporate debt. So it keeps fighting, mortgaging its 2030s to survive its 2020s. Russia's GDP growth in 2026, 0.4%, down from 4% in 2023. The wartime sugar rush is over. The hangover has begun. The most dangerous states in history are not rising powers. They are falling ones that have not accepted the fall. A nuclear-armed Russia that has made war its identity is not just Russia's problem. This is not a Russia problem. This is a world problem. Every government not thinking seriously about it is sleepwalking. If you found this through Japan or China, here is what connects every story. Nations do not fail because of bad luck. They fail from decisions made a century before anyone feels them. 3 nations, 3 decisions. Japan decided demographics did not matter. China decided the party mattered more than the family. Russia decided war was easier than institutions. Every one of these stories is still unfolding. New story every week. Subscribe only if you want the uncomfortable version of events. Back to the beginning. The largest country on Earth. The most resources, 11th in GDP, the size of South Korea, not because of sanctions, not bad luck, not Western interference. 5 centuries of the same decision, conquer outward rather than build inward. There is a mechanic in Yekaterinburg named Dmitry. He is 38. His son was mobilized in 2022. He does not know where his son is. He watches the news every night. He does not blame Putin. He blames Ukraine. He blames NATO. He is one of 144 million Russians inside the same information ecosystem. Because that is what 5 centuries of this system produces. A man who cannot see the ceiling because he has only ever lived inside the room. Russia didn't choose war. It chose never to build anything that could survive without it. The next generation will be mobilized for the next version of this war. Different name. 500 years. Same template. Subscribe to World Fracture. Is Russia's pattern breakable, or is a country shaped by 500 years of the same institution simply too deep in the pattern to leave it? I want to know what you think.